Hello, everyone, and welcome to this MEF webinar session entitled The GOV UK Wallet, What It Is and How It Will Change Mobile Authentication. My name's Tim Green. I'm the Director of MEF APIs and Authentication Programme, and I'm very happy to be hosting this session. So over the next 45 minutes or so, we'll explore the possible impact of a huge shift coming to the UK ID and authentication space, and that is the gov.uk wallet. It's a scheme that might completely change the way that British citizens prove their identities online and in person. So in theory, out will go scans of utility documents and photos of passports and all those insecure methods of authenticating. And in their place, verified, encrypted digital credentials stored in an official government wallet. Well, that's the theory. And there's still quite a bit of uncertainty around the scheme. And so today we'll try and tease out what we know about the gov.uk wallet, what it is and what it can and can't do. And perhaps most important for the MEF community, what it might mean for other authentication methods like OTPs and APIs. So it's all fascinating stuff. And we've got two amazing guests to dive into it all. First, we have Bryn Robinson-Morgan. He's a consultant for iProov, the biometric authentication specialist. And we're also joined by Gautam Hazari, who's the Chief Product and Innovation Officer of XConnect. And Gautam's mobile ID credentials are about as good as anyone's in the world. He worked for the GSMA and invented one of the was instrumental in creating the Mobile Connect ID system about a decade or so ago. So anyway, I'm going to hand over to Bryn, who's going to do an introductory presentation on the wallet, and then we'll have a discussion. So I'm going to hand over to Bryn now. Thanks.
Thanks, Tim. Good afternoon, everyone. Just before I start, just to position the presentation that I'm doing, what I'll be explaining today is my understanding of the gov.uk wallet based on the information that's available. I'm not here representing governments or speaking on behalf of them, so I just wanted to make that clear. What I will be providing you with today is that overview, and I'll explain what the wallet is and what it does, and how it will hopefully be used by citizens when they're interacting with government, but also what that means for how they'll interact with the private sector. So despite our digital progress, many transactions still require a clunky transition from the physical world to digital systems. So if we consider the common act of hiring a car online, even in a digital booking flow, you often have to find your physical driving license. You then need to find a well-lit spot, and you need to scan your license into a third-party application. This process creates two major points of friction. First, it separates identity from entitlement. The static photo proves that you have the document, but it doesn't prove in real time that your license is still valid or how many points you have. And secondly, there is zero reusability in that process. You have to repeat this scan and wait process for every new company that you deal with, every single time you interact with them. And we're stuck digitizing transactional services one at a time, rather than moving toward an automated real-time data service. So, introducing the gov.uk wallet. This is a secure digital vault that will be on your smartphone, and it will allow you to save and share official government documents. So unlike a simple photo, the wallet uses verifiable credentials, which are cryptographically signed packets of data that allow for instant one-step verification. The wallet is built on the security of gov.uk One Login, which ensures that only the verified holder can access or permission the sharing of their own documents. It's also important to emphasize that this is an entirely optional digital companion to the existing physical documents that we have today. those physical documents will remain fully valid. But for those who choose it, the wallet turns identity into a live, usable digital asset. It's not just the UK that are moving in this direction. We're part of a global shift. Governments in the EU, South Africa, and Australia are all currently introducing government-led wallet models, where the state provides both the infrastructure and the credentials. Alternatively, in markets like the United States, we see a private-led infrastructure model. There, companies like Apple and Google provide the wallet environment, and the government's role is to provide the authoritative credentials, like mobile driving licenses, to inhabit them. The UK's framework is designed to be interoperable, allowing users to choose the gov.uk wallet for official government proofs, whilst potentially using private sector wallets alongside it. Within the public sector, the wallets act as a digital backbone, connecting authoritative sources with those who need to verify them. Central departments, such as the Department for Work and Pensions or the DVLA, act as issuers, providing the digital versions of physical documents like the driver's license or benefits entitlement. Whilst other public bodies, from the NHS to local authorities, can then consume these credentials. So this allows for full life cycle management. And because there are these live data connections, an issuing department can refresh or revoke a credential in real time. So if a status change in the central record occurs, the wallet reflects that change immediately, ensuring government always acts as a single source of truth. To bring this trust into the private sector, we rely on the UK Digital Verification Services Trust Framework. Private companies can only access the gov.uk wallet ecosystem if they are certified and added to the official DVS register. Identity service providers, or IDSPs, can use the government-issued credentials to create what we call derived credentials, which are reusable digital identity documents that prove specific facts. Like, for example, being over 18. And they can do that in a way that means that you don't need to share the user's full date of birth or their home address, as you do today when you show your physical driving license. This check once, use anywhere model is what finally delivers reusability to the citizen. The final link in the chain is market connectivity through orchestration service providers, or OSPs. OSPs facilitate the secure movement of information from the gov.uk wallet to private businesses, such as a merchant's website, the car hire company that we talked about earlier, or even a pub when you're going to buy a drink at the bar. And crucially, in this model, the user has full control over their data. The system is designed so that there is no central record of where a credential has been used or for what purpose. And this maintains high levels of privacy. The OSP provides the secure piping to prove a user's entitlement to another business with total confidence. The gov.uk wallet becomes a foundational layer of trust infrastructure upon which other trust services can be built. And these include things like identity fraud risk services. So the things that this audience will be very well aware of, such as SIM swap detection, geolocation, device reputation, but also authentication services as well, such as silent network authentication to prove a mobile phone number belongs to that user, and also iProov's own biometric liveness capabilities. Together, these services build a complete stack of identity trust infrastructure. The engine behind this entire framework is the Data Use and Access Act of 2025. This landmark legislation puts the trust framework on a statutory footing. The most critical power here is the Information Gateway, Section 45, which allows public authorities to disclose information to registered DVS providers. It's important to state that this isn't a general surveillance gateway. Rather, it is controlled through explicit user consent. This provides the legal green light for the secure sharing of data between government and certified private verifiers. It ensures that the Gov UK Wallet remains a focused ecosystem for government-issued credentials, whilst allowing for safe disclosure to the wider economy. The impact of this transformation is significant for everyone involved. For the citizen, it's a frictionless user experience that ends the time tax of manual paperwork and manual processes. For businesses, it provides operational efficiency by replacing manual back office checks with automated API-driven validation. It also leads to a massive reduction in fraud, as businesses no longer have to rely on easily forged paper-based images, rather on cryptographically signed data from the source. And finally, it unlocks innovation, allowing the UK's thriving tech sector to build new, high-trust services around these verified attributes. The roadmap is clear. The enabling foundations have been laid. In 2027, underpinned by Gov UK One Login, the government will begin rollout of digital versions of the credentials to the Gov UK Wallet. And this will start with the digital driving license. Citizens will have the choice to download a digital version of the credentials that government issue to them. We're moving from a world of fragmented, analog-based identity to a seamless digital-first UK. This is about more than just an app. It's about building a modern digital government that works as fast as people's lives do. So let's deliver on this potential together. Thank you.
Okay, Bryn, well, thank you so much. That's very comprehensive and clear. Gautam, I promise I'm going to bring you in, but I'm just going to stick with Bryn for a little while. First of all, as you said at the beginning, you're not representing the government. Could you hypothesize a sort of user journey? So as you said, driving licenses will be first. So let's say I've heard about this Gov Wallet and I'm keen to get involved with it. What do I do? Do I go to the Apple App Store, the Android App Store, download the app. Then how do I get my credential from the DVLA, which for overseas viewers is the British authority for issuing driving licenses. So can you walk us through how it might work?
Yeah, I can give you a basic journey for how that would
Yeah.
take place. So the gov.uk wallet is available in the App Store today. So it's got limited functionality at the moment, but if you're a veteran, you can go and download a digital version of your veterans card. So that's live at the moment.
Right.
So the citizen would need to go to their App Store and download the wallet onto their phone. I mentioned that this is underpinned by the gov.uk One Login service.
Mm.
gov.uk One Login is the identity and authentication service that's going to sit across central government. So the user has to go and prove their identity and register for gov.uk One Login. That serves as the way that they will identify themselves to the DVLA, to the issuer of the driver's license. So they will log into to the DVLA website and say, I want to claim my credential. They will also use that gov.uk One Login to log into their instance of the government wallet. And that's what creates the connection between the government department and the wallet. And having identified themselves at both ends, which will probably just be through a single process, that's how they can then claim that credential and have it added to their wallet.
And what's the one login process?
So One Login has got both an online route where you do have to scan your driver's license or your passport in order to identify yourself in the first place. There are multiple paths through that, so it's designed to be an inclusive process. There is also a way of doing that through physical channels, which is through the post office network. So you can go into certain post office branches and complete that identity verification process as well. But once you've been through that process, you then have a gov.uk One Login, which you sign in using your email address and password currently, plus a second factor credential. When you use that in the application, you can then use device-based biometrics to do that authentication into the Gov wallet.
It's just kind of interesting, isn't it, that we're trying to get this secure form of authentication and we have to go through a form of authentication to get the authentication, and that might be quite analog. But I don't know what the solution to that is. So just quickly, one more question. I realise that this, MEF is a global organisation, but we are talking about the UK here, and it can serve as quite a good template for what might happen elsewhere. You've explained one login, you've explained the wallet. We also have this. We've had this on and off launch of digital identity cards in the UK. How does this fit in? I mean, just for any viewers out there, it was being introduced as a mandatory thing, and now it's being introduced as a voluntary thing. How does this fit with those plans?
So that's a very good question. I think that's the $1 million question.
Yeah.
So it's quite easy to see where One Login fits as the identity verification across government, where the wallet sits as your container for your government issued credentials. The government digital identity itself, that's less clear as to exactly where that fits and what role that will perform. At the moment, the UK government are in the midst of a consultation process. So they went out to consultation, which several of the identity providers in the UK market commented on. They've then been running what they've dubbed a people's panel, which is asking real people what they think of digital identity and what they would want from a government delivered digital identity program. We're yet to see what the response from that consultation has been and how government interprets that response. But hopefully, what's been learnt through the consultation, what's been learnt through the People's Panel, will help to form what that digital identity itself will look like. But effectively, it will be potentially another credential that will be held in the wallet.
Yeah, because it seems to me that if you just added, you've got the veterans card, we've got the driving license coming. If we add passports to it, I don't know why we even need a digital identity separate scheme, because surely by default, anyone who wants to can just have a passport credential in their Gov UK wallet, and then they've got a national digital identity, haven't they?
Um, the challenge in the UK is that we don't have a foundational identity.
Mm.
So like countries such as the US and Australia, we don't have that foundational identity layer. That definitely has challenges that we need to address. A foundational identity, by its very nature, needs to be the most secure, the strongest
Yeah,
identity credential that you have, because that's what everything else is based on. If you talk to the DVLA or you talk to the Passport Office, they will tell you that their documents are not identity documents, they're entitlement documents. The
mm.
driving license entitles you to drive, the passport entitles you to travel. But
Yeah,
the lack of an identity document, a foundational identity document, means that they often get substituted into that role. But I
yeah.
think that this is what the consultation needs to identify exactly what the need is for foundational identity in the UK.
Okay, Gautam, you've been very patient. Thanks for waiting. You've got a very good overview of what's happening in different regions. How would you compare this initiative to other schemes around the world?
Um, Thanks, Tim and Bryn. Brilliant presentation and overview. And as Bryn was just mentioning right now, UK is politically, architecturally, foundation-wise different, isn't it? We don't have a foundation for digital identity, and that's fine. So that's why we don't need to copy what is elsewhere. Although, interestingly and rightly so, we are actually utilizing from the, let's say, technological foundation and standards foundation, as well as Bryn was presenting as well, the ones which are used globally as well. For example, relying on the W3C decentralized identity technologies, etc. That's from the technology and standard perspective, and also including the ISO 180.135. Sorry, just remember the number. Yeah, which is used by the private sectors as well, like Apple and
Mm.
Google, right?
Yeah,
Um, Coming to some of the global ones, for example, let's take Singapore, the SingPass. Not exactly same as a decentralized wallet scene is. Hello, can you hear me?
yeah. You just went off briefly, but you're back now.
Ah, really sorry. Uh, I don't know where it cut off. I'll start again. So, globally, Singapore is put quite a lot of spot on SingPass, right? It started as an app, but then evolved into a digital wallet. Although a bit centralized, I have to say, but the value or the objective of the values are similar to what we are expecting here as well, right? And the values have been seen in Singapore, right? Now they are moving into trialing out the decentralized identity using similar technologies and standards that we all are talking about, including the EUDI wallet and the UK wallet, as Bryn was explaining there. And also in Australia, Bryn talk about, which is probably at a similar stage as in UK, probably a bit later than what UK is doing. But they have a foundational digital identity system in there. Another one I would pick is India. because there is a massive transformation that's been seen there, right? So the Aadhaar is a Hindi word. It means foundation, and that was created in 2009, and again as part of the regulation as well. So that I think that's where UK is different. So that's the kind of digital identity foundation. Didn't start as a wallet though, right? It was to create a digital identity ecosystem, including a regulation. But then it evolved into a wallet. And then I think the one very important thing that they did was is create a public trust infrastructure in the form of a digital public infrastructure, right? Created identity as a trust infrastructure and then allowed the state entities and also private entities to innovate on top. Uh, and then created the wallet infrastructure as well. There is something called DigiLocker, which is been created on top of Aadhaar right now. It's not just Aadhaar, not just the identity wallet, but you can include other credentials in there as well. Right now, there are around 500 million users for the DigiLocker. And then that has shown lot of innovation, not just in the public sector definitely, because it reduced a lot of fraud, friction, and also a benefit and value distribution system, but also in the private sector. The another interesting thing there is, for example, all the payment innovation that happened in India, the digital payment, right, including the inclusion aspects in there. That's an innovation that was created on top of the entire wallet infrastructure. Yeah, so those are some of the other related and also slightly non-related as well, because of the unique positioning of UK, as we are talking about, as Bryn highlighted as well, because we don't have a digital identity foundation. We are a bit late to the game as well for various reasons, but I think the direction is right. The direction that we are moving into in the UK with the UK wallet, the Gov UK wallet, I think the direction is right. And with the small steps that we are making, I think it will make a big difference, hopefully. And the optionality is interesting as well. We'll have to see how does it work.
So obviously this is the first steps for the UK to move into this direction. As you said that in India it's been going for a long time. Can you just and you alluded to some of the innovation on top of that. Can you just briefly talk about some of the innovation you've seen? So to give us an example of how it might change the way we transact here.
Yeah, so I think it's kind of obvious, right? So instead of in our interaction with public and private sector, where it is more show me your document or give me your document to verify the contextual and relevant attributes in the digital space and also in physical space as well, right? That actually opens up a lot of different avenues. Payment is one. Payment is the obvious one because this is where there is a strong cohesion between any identity ecosystem, including the wallet ecosystem, and then that will see a lot of innovation. What we will have to see, and then every country is unique, right? In India, due to the size, due to the huge population of unbanked users, because the banking ecosystem was not purely due to the size, and there are from tier 1 to tier 6 cities. So, tier 1 cities, there are only 8 tier 1 cities in India, and there are 93 tier 2 cities, right? And then you can go to tier 6, right? Due to that, it's not really one thing that can actually work. If you want to get everyone a bank account, yes, possible, but it's hard, right? The other way to look into that is because it's a mobile first and sometimes mobile only. So many of the citizens only got access to the digital services, including payments, only through a mobile phone, right? That got an opportunity to use wallets to get into payments. So and that's why instead of doing bank-based transaction or let's say card-based transaction, they started to use payment wallet-based transaction, and the payment wallet was then linked into the identity wallet for obvious problem, right? Because I remember in one of the conferences where I was speaking, my fellow speaker said one very interesting thing. In any payment, there are two things. One is you know how to credit an account and debit an account. That we knew for last 2000 years. So that's not a problem that we need to solve. The problem is to solve who owns account A and who owns account B. The problem is identity. So payment is not a payment problem, it's an identity problem. So that's
Yeah.
exactly what I have shown
Yeah.
in India, right? And also, I think one thing, you can call it innovation, you can call it necessity, it's fraud. And as Bryn touched upon as well. It's so easy these days to do document-based fraud using Gen AI free of cost. And it's not just theory. Creating, let's say, any document is free for the fraudsters, and you can do it within seconds. Again, I'll pick India. I saw in the news, I think 2, 3 weeks back, there was some guy in the western part of India uh, created huge amount of fake documents using some Gen AI tool and opened bank account. I don't even remember, more than 100 bank accounts, right? And got undetected. Only when he got detected, when I think he was a bit not careful, the name was of a male, but the image that was in the document was of a female. Then you say, how is it possible? Then it got detected, right? So doing document-based fraud is easy. If we convert that, as we were talking about, that instead of, hey, show me your document, you say, hey, verify this attribute cryptographically through the wallet. We actually remove those fraudulent scenarios induced by Gen AI these days.
Okay. So that's interesting, Gautam. So you talked about the ease with which how things are getting all easier for fraudsters that have more tools at their disposal. To bring you back in, Bryn, obviously iProov knows a lot about this. Started out with people putting masks on, and then it ends up with injection-based fraud. Can you talk about the role that biometrics plays in the different stages of authentication with this process, and how you're fighting against some of those fraudulent methods?
Yeah, absolutely. I think picking up on what Gautam was saying there, when we talk about document-based identity fraud, we think about driver's licenses and we think about passports. But actually, when you consider the range of credentials that government issue to citizens, it's not just those high assurance ones. It's also things like your entitlement to benefits through the DWP that also get consumed downstream, either in different government departments or in the private sector as well. And today, the way that we do that, it's not even sophisticated Gen AI fraud. It's access to a color printer, and you can print off your own letter, and that's a something that's existed and has been used going back into COVID times. I had a letter that said that I could travel because I was working on important stuff that my employer required me to travel by. But it was on a piece of printed letter. And it's, that kind of sophistication that you need to do that is very low. And I think that this is where getting access to the government issued credential that we can prove things about is fantastic. It gives us that foundational layer. But what the government aren't doing is they're not enriching that with the risk signals, with the fraud signals, with the additional data that's required. And one of those is going to be, is the person that's presenting the driver's license the genuine subject of that driver's license?
Yeah.
And the way that we do that today in a physical environment is that we look at the driver's license in front of us and we look at the photo and we try and match that to the person who's presenting it. And most of the people who are doing that matching are not trained in how to do that matching. The people sat on the checkouts at the supermarket, the people stood on the doors at the bar, they're not trained to do
Yeah.
that facial match. And that's where iProov services in the biometric liveness, making sure that we're not being attacked by generative AI, that it's not a spoofed identity. And then the likeness matching is the live person that we've just verified. Is that the same as the person's photo on that government issued document. That then enables the private sector to actually consume those credentials with the trust that they need for their use cases. So government aren't mandated to solve all the fraud problems that all the private sector has. Their mandate is on that foundational layer, is on the credentials that they issue. And that's where the private sector organizations such as iProov come in to actually strengthen those credentials, add the additional fraud risk signals, and add other data as well. So if we think of something like applying for a job, not only do you need to know that you've got the right to work, but you also need proof of your qualifications. You also need proof of your employment history. So all those things put together, bound by the biometric liveness that says that, yes, this is the identity of the person who's presenting them. They are the genuine subject. That's what really strengthens that use case in the private sector.
And in your presentation, you talked about this stack of identity credentials, and or authentication credentials. Certainly, you talked about silent authentication and that kind of thing. How and I'm going to ask Gautam about this as well. How do you see this new form of wallet-based authentication sitting alongside some of the things that obviously the MEF community is very involved with, APIs, OTPs, and so on?
Yeah, and the layering of these different risk signals, credentials, is what's going to enable the private sector. So we're seeing in the workforce area that North Korean state actors are interviewing for jobs, are trying to take over existing accounts of people who have been onboarded. And that's where you can use a government credential. So if I contact the help desk and say, I've forgotten my password or I've lost my RSA token, whatever it may be, in order to safely get that account back to me, if I've got a government issued document that's in the same name, that's cryptographically verifiable,
Yeah.
if I've got the biometric liveness based assertion that it really is me tied to the photo on that document, if I've then got a silent network authentication that the mobile number that I'm calling from is the one that's in the corporate list of contact numbers, that's where we can then safely do account recovery, privileged access management, all the things that require high assurance, higher than just logging into my normal everyday workforce account. So you can start to see that the layering of this trust infrastructure enables us to service the full range of use cases.
So Gautam, this is your business. So what are your thoughts on how this wallet and similar wallets might fit with number verification, silent network authentication, and so on?
I think there is I hope in UK as well, and also beyond in many countries we are seeing globally. There's a symbiotic relationship here, right? So the wallet include, I mean, using all the great kind of innovation that has happened in the standard space, in the technology space, especially in cryptography and utilizing cryptography. That's brilliant, right? So the credentials are in the wallet, which can be cryptographically proved in a context, which is great. So from wallet to whoever is using it, the verifiers, etc. That's great. But then how do we protect the wallet? Because at some point, the wallet is an application as well. It's not just an application, but it's an application as well. Where is the application sitting? On a mobile device, right? So now we need to protect the wallet itself as well. Otherwise, the credential in the wallet is great cryptographically, kind of protected, and you can prove cryptographically, you can verify the credential. But what about the wallet on its own? What about the application where the wallet is sitting, right? Because the mobile device is only as secure as the user is kind of using or paying, or how the user is using as well, right? And it will be unfair to just utilize the security of the very high-end smartphones. But what about all the other, let's say, lower end smartphones. There are $10 to $50 smartphones in sub-Saharan Africa and, for example, in Southeast Asia as well, right? It will be unfair from a technological community to the society, right? So in that case, all those things which are already, there comes into the picture. For example, silent mobile authentication. Bryn mentioned it. You are saying this as well. So that becomes a secure and convenience authentication mechanism for the wallet itself as an application and can work alongside biometric authentication because biometric authentication needs device binding, right? How do you know that that biometric authentication when you are utilizing is actually bound to the device and the
Yeah.
SIM, right? In many countries, there's a regulatory need now. For example, in India, payment wallet needs to have SIM binding. That's a regulatory need right now, right? So this is where silent authentication come in. And it's not just silent authentication. It's all the other network APIs that we from XConnect are working. And before that as well, we were working and we are still working globally in there. For example, the largest account takeover fraud in globally right now is SIM swap fraud, right? And then SIM swap fraud attacks the device and also the application, right? And the wallet is an application. How do we protect that? Use the network API, which is already available to protect from SIM swap fraud, similarly call forward fraud, and so on, right? So that way, I think there is a symbiotic relationship, right? These network APIs, including silent mobile authentication, can protect the wallet as an application on a device inclusively, irrespective of what device it is. And then the wallet then protects the credential through the cryptography in it.
So obviously in XConnect and other companies are already in this space. You're monetizing these capabilities. To come back to you, Bryn, again, we'll repeat, you're not representing the government in this, and all of this is a lot of this is hypothesis, but how would you expect some of these, the third parties that you mentioned, the identity service providers, the orchestration layer companies, how would you expect them to monetize what they bring to the party here?
So the only way of getting those credentials from the government wallet is through a certified DVS. So there is no direct connection from any uncertified bodies, any relying parties. You have to be a certified DVS provider. So in terms of that monetization, it is those additional services that are being laid on top of the government credentials. So government, yes, it's a cryptographically signed government issued credential. That's what the government are going to assert to a relying party. But does it belong to the person presenting it? Is it coming from a device that's trustworthy? Is it coming from the right geolocation? Is it coming from a device that's not been jailbroken, that's not been subject to fraud? So all those additional value add signals are where the market for the DVS comes from, is being able to layer those services on top. And it's also about bringing those other credentials that aren't government issued ones. So we mentioned the university degree, the work history. But I think that that market for additional credentials and the way that they're presented, that's going to be, if the wallet infrastructure is successful, that's going to be a shift in the market as well. So you may see that your credit score, it's still going to be provided by the credit bureaus, but maybe that will flow through the wallet infrastructure as well. So the relying party gets a single integration. From a user perspective, they get to see a lot more granular control over the sharing of that data. It's no longer something that happens in the back channel from the RP to the credit bureau, but rather it happens from the credit bureau to the individual to the relying party. So it gives greater agency, greater transparency of what's happening. Obviously, I don't get to change my credit score. I don't get to decide whether I want to share the good one or the bad one. But at least I can see what is being shared and I can consent to that sharing.
But the government's been very clear that this wallet will only store government credentials. You won't be able to put tickets on there or or anything else. So presumably that's, as you just intimated, that's an opportunity for the private sector to build on top of these foundations, but to create their own products.
Yes, absolutely. And whether the government wallet will be the sole store of government credentials in the medium to long term, I think that again will be down to how the market forms and down to what ultimately consumers, citizens of the UK want to have as their storage mechanism. So potentially in future, those government credentials could also be stored in certified wallets. But I think that's a question as to how the market plays out.
Yeah, I mean, it's outside the premises of this conversation, but there has been some tension, shall we say, between the private sector and government on this, and so it'd be interesting to see how that all plays out. But as Bryn says, it's all really very positive that at least we're moving in this direction, and we can see, the public can kind of get used to this idea of digital credentials and move away from the clunkiness of scanning passports that you described so well earlier on. So I'm going to leave the last word to Gautam because we're running out of time now. Gautam's just written a book about agentic AI, and this is very much the topic of the moment. Could you give any First of all, can you explain, what the agentic AI challenge is, and then how it might impact this whole area of digital credentials and wallets?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. I think in the context of what we are talking about, it's the identity of these agents, right? Because these AI agents, they don't have their own internet. They will all use the internet that we are using now. And as we have been talking about it for, I don't know, maybe 2 decades at least, I'm talking about since the Mobile Connect times, is the internet doesn't have this identity layer, right? We don't need to repeat it, but that still is a reality.
Yeah,
Internet was not created to identify the humans, unless we all would have IP addresses by now. Maybe we will have when Elon Musk decides to put some sort of chip in here. But anyways, not really in the next 2 years or so. So the problem of the agentic AI in this context is identity, right? How do we identify these agents? But probably more importantly, how do we validate and verify what they're authorized to do, or whether I have authorized them to do or not, right? How do we actually, verify all those? This is an evolving thing. Without getting into those details, coming back to how does it, fit or not fit in what we are talking about in wallet.
yeah,
I think we have a good news, right? Because what these agentic AI ecosystem needs is machine verifiable, not machine readable, machine verifiable, contextual, and cryptographically verifiable. That's what these agents need, right? Because otherwise, the entire identity ecosystem was created for us humans, assuming at the end of the day, there is someone who can hold the passport next to, the
mm,
face, who can actually scan a driving license with the phone, right? Or in physically then do the same as Bryn was talking about. So now this agentic system, of course, cannot do that, but they need those three things, as we said. I think we are lucky enough that this wallet actually covers all those three, right? So let's start with the other end, as we talked about, as Bryn explained as well. There are cryptographically verifiable credentials available, which the agentic ecosystem can use, right? They are contextual because the agents they don't follow a strict kind of even API based ecosystem, right? They will not say that, okay, I have an API endpoint and I know the API schema, that's what I will use. That's not how the agentic ecosystem works, right? The agents decide because they have the agency that this is the context and I want this, right? This is exactly what we were talking about. And
yeah.
they're machine readable. That way, I think we are just lucky that whatever we are building as the wallet ecosystem fits at least conceptually with this agentic system. But yes, we need to solve this agentic identity problem, and we are on it. I'm positive and hopeful.
Well, we've discussed it on these webinars before, and we're definitely going to come back to it again. So that's a pretty positive note to end on. So with that, I'm going to say thank you very much to Bryn for your introduction and all your comments, and to Gautam as ever for your insights. I'm just going to remind the audience that you'll be getting an email reminding you how you can watch again on the socials. We'll be posting this, recording this webinar very soon on all our socials. And and thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next time. Thanks very much. Bye bye.